Hi, our guest today is Milford Health Agent Paul Mazzuchelli. My co-host Al Holman's not here today. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, one of the reasons we asked you here, quite honestly, is the Board of Health meetings aren't televised. The last couple of meetings you've been dealing with complaints about rats in parts of Milford.
Right.
And you said a lot of the good stuff at the meetings, but again, they're not televised, so I wonder if we could go into them there. What causes a rat to come into somebody's neighborhood?
Right. A variety of factors, Kevin, will do that. Usually, like we mentioned at the meeting, the main attractant is food. Then would be shelter, and then water.
And you said they want to live within 150 feet of the food and water.
They usually do. When a rat comes into a neighborhood, you know, they're going in for the food. The first thing that I mentioned before, that any inspector or any pest control professional should ask when they approach a situation and talk to a homeowner, or in their mind when they go, is what are they eating? You know, in other words, what is causing these rats to come to this neighborhood?
So in some cases now you found bags of garbage lying on the ground that have been gnawed open.
Right, bags of garbage. People that are improperly preparing and storing their rubbish prior to pickup.
They're not putting in a sealed can.
They're not putting in sealed cans. They have them in regular plastic bags. They're on the ground. They're not, as you could see from the pictures that we showed at the meeting, most of them aren't even tied up or secured.
Right, I mean, you had pizza boxes that were gnawed.
Pizza boxes.
I mean, one of them, you had an empty dumpster and people piling trash right next to it.
Right.
And the trash was gnawed open.
It was.
And I remember the empty pizza box had gnaw marks all
gnaw marks. And like I said, I mean, it's a partnership. People says, you know, there's no magic, you know, with rodent control. Like if they call a pest control person, or if they go to the hardware store and buy a product to take care of the rats.
If you still leave the garbage out,
you still leave, right. And I always say it's a partnership between the Board of Health, or the property owner, the neighborhood people, as well as the pest control person. You need cooperation from everybody. There's no, again, there's no magic. The Pied Piper is a fairy tale.
So where are the rats finding the water? That's dangerous. I mean, I know we've had a very wet year in terms of rainfall.
Right.
But wouldn't they normally live near a river or stream and not necessarily in a residential neighborhood?
Right, and we saw that. I believe it was last year or the year before we had a pretty bad drought.
Last 2 years.
And what happened was we found that's when this uptick of rodents started to come to play, and we felt as though that they were, you know, leaving embankments of streams and little ponds and whatnot because they were dried up. And now they were in search of moisture. A lot of times they find that in gardens or grass, you know, through the dew on the during the morning time. A lot of times a bird bath or a cat or a dog bowl would be left outside and whatnot. So you know that's what would attract them for the water part. But the other part would be the food, and that's the main thing. One of the we had a few incidents or a few developments in town just recently. Was the construction of the Milford Hospital. We had the we knocked down Archer Rubber, which was a very big plant, a very old plant, right on the embankment of a body of water. We had the Blair House right in that area also being built.
So you think that's driving them further outward?
Of course, yeah, it would. I mean, again, it doesn't cause them, but they would already be there, so they would be more or less, you know, dispersed.
Right. They're always there somewhere.
Right.
But this time they're
becoming more friendly or more comfortable in residential areas. And what happens too is a lot of their predators aren't there anymore. You know, the foxes, the coyotes, and you know the other animals that would prey upon them.
Because the town got more developed.
The town got more developed and whatnot, and they don't really the predators really can't live in residential areas. But the mice and the rats feel as though, you know, that they can, you know, they can survive very well. They eat the same food we eat, you know, and the Norway rat is what we're talking about. Very, very smart, very adaptive. Like I said, they more or less like their high protein foods, but they would also eat grains and nuts and other foods like that. And again, they can adapt to anything. What they usually would do is they would go and they would burrow into the ground, like to make their little burrows, because they like corners. They like to be secluded. They feel throughout nature and through history that they are preyed upon, and that's why they always like to go to shadowy areas, dark areas, corners, and that way there they feel as though that they're secure, and there's also an exit way to get out.
What's the remedy when I see things posted on like the Milford Facebook page?
Yeah.
Oh, there's rats in our neighborhood. Where'd they come from, or what do we do?
Well,
by and large, they're looking for food.
They're looking for food, and again, it's a partnership, like I mentioned before. But it's also just look at this theory. Why would you want to have something come into your neighborhood first, and then try to kill it? Wouldn't you want to prevent it from coming in so you don't have to kill it? And that's the theory I like to get out to landlords and to tenants as well. For instance, like when you were talking about that dumpster on Green Street.
Right.
Here it is, a container was not even a quarter full. It was 3/4 empty.
I mean, that one really puzzled me, to see people just piling bags up next to it when it's empty.
And it wasn't people, random people doing it. That was tenants.
Right.
That was actually coming out and just throwing their rubbish bags right in front of the dumpster on the ground. And as you could see what it caused. A rat usually consumes probably about an ounce of food in 24 hours, maybe an ounce and a half in 24 hours. And like you mentioned before, they have a radius. They're very lazy. They like to stay close to food sources. So what they would do is the most they would travel, in a regular colony is 100 to 150 feet radius. Yeah. But like I said, if the colony is starting to be overcrowded and there's lack of food, they could go as far as 300 feet, but no more. So they usually stay close to their food source, and that's why when someone calls and says they have a rat sighting, we go to that particular address and we try to find conditions that are conducive to it.
Right. So you had a case on Water Street, and you found some things in the property next door.
Right. So once we find them, we cite who's responsible, either the landlord or the tenant or both.
Right.
And that's how we get it taken care of. And of course, we want to make sure that it's carried out. We don't give them a lot of leeway and say, well, we'll take care of it in 2 weeks. That's too much time.
Now, do the rats carry any kind of disease
yes,
or virus, so that you really don't want them near you?
You don't want rats, not only because aesthetics, but
do they have rabies? Do they carry?
Not really rabies, but they have caused a lot of bacteria, a lot of viruses that they could cause either from their saliva, when they contaminate food, or through their feces and urine.
Back in Europe, the Great Black Death of the Middle Ages
the Black
was
Plague
carried by rats.
The rats from the flea.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, just to get off the subject, but it was still on the subject, when people say God bless you, that's how that was actually started. What happened was one of the first signs of the plague is sneezing.
Sneezing.
And when the Black Plague was around,
well, that's also what the song "Ring Around the Rosie" was about. But
yeah, but not only that, but when someone first sneezed, the Pope at the time, which controlled most of the country back then, that would be what he would say when someone sneezed: "God bless you." I hope it's not the plague. So that's how that all started.
All weird things that you
But but like I said, that's what we try to get after the sanitation part. Cooperation with sanitation is pest control. Sanitation is public health.
So if most people are putting their trash in cans with lids, they shouldn't really have a problem.
They shouldn't have a problem at all. They really shouldn't. And of course, there's other things that we like to do. If you have a garden, keep an eye on the falling vegetables or fruits, because now when they start to rot and decay, they would give off a nice odor, and rats have a very good sense of smell. Right. Not so much in sight. That's why they go out at night, because they can see better at night than they can in the daytime. But they do have that sharp sense of smell and hearing, and they would be able to detect that fruit and vegetable that fell. And like I said, they can adapt to anything. If there isn't a lot of meats or fats around and whatnot, they would go to the fruits and vegetables.
Well, they just want to survive.
They want to survive, right.
Right. So any outside of looking for, not a lot of trash piled up somewhere, what should people do if they see a rat in their neighborhood?
If they see a rat in their neighborhood, call the Board of Health. And what we would do is go to that address. We would inspect that property to see if there's, like I mentioned before, if anything that is conducive to that problem. And if not, we would go around. We want to keep that 150-foot radius in our mind, even the 300-foot radius in our mind. So we would go to the neighboring properties on the side, on the front, on the back to see, because if you see something in your yard, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're causing it. It could be 3 and 4 houses away that's causing the problem.
What do you do when you find a problem? Do you talk to the property owner?
Yeah, we would talk to the, usually with the state code, the property owner is responsible to making sure their property is kept in a clean and sanitary manner at all times.
Right. In the case of rental housing, though, doesn't the tenant have a responsibility?
Tenant has responsibility for the proper placement and storage of his rubbish. So now, if it's stored outside, we would cite the property owner because it's stored outside. That's a common area. He should be responsible. And one of the things that we try to mention too, Kevin, if you remember, back in the winter time and maybe close to a year ago, we try to have property owners more responsible for their tenants. And it's not only the state sanitary code by making it habitable, making sure they have hot and cold running water, making sure that the windows work, there's no holes in the ceilings, and they have the proper heat and all that. But also to make sure that with rubbish disposal, like when we have a very active, in a very comprehensive recycling program, we're one of the only towns or municipalities in the state that actually services 5 families or less.
You guys wrote letters to the owners of all the multifamilies.
Yes, we did.
If I remember rightly.
Right. And, because one of the things we were thinking about, because we have a lot of problems, what we didn't mention in this show right now is that the majority, or if not all, of our complaints so far are from multifamily residents.
That are rented out.
Right. Multifamily, like 2, maybe 3 and more. So like I said, what the Board of Health tried to do is, and we're still trying, and we're succeeding, is having the landlord more responsible for not only getting their tenants to understand our regulations when it comes to rubbish and recycling, but to be more active in the program as well. And with that would come the proper storage in preparation of your rubbish and recycling. So
basically, if the property owner lives out of town, you actually want them to pay attention to the property.
Pay attention to the property.
Show up now and then and look at it.
Right. And there's no reason why a 3, 4 family, 5 family home should not be recycling or properly placing their rubbish and storing their rubbish prior to pickup.
Right.
That should be part of the lease agreement or the rental agreement. This is when you have trash day. This is not only that, but with the occupancy, we also do that. Yeah. But this is what you can have for occupancy. This is what you should have. This is what you should do during trash day. This is what your responsibilities are.
Paul, is some of this just cultural, that as people move to this area from a different country, they may not understand the sanitation rules?
Right. So what we do too is we also have a pamphlet that we created for rodents. It gives a little history about the rodent, and mice and rats, and it also tells them how you can prevent them. In other words, be proactive instead of reacting. Right. Like I mentioned, why would you want to invite something and kill it later? You want to prevent it from coming in first. So that's what and we have that in Spanish and we have it in Portuguese. And when we do go to a home, and let's say it's the majority of tenants are international tenants. Right. What we would do is we would send that out in that nationality. And any questions they can ask us. And it has been working. Is it 100%? No. But it is working. I mean, you could go by that house next time, or maybe a week or so later, we would find the residents come to the Board of Health asking for recycling bins. Or they'd be asking for like questions on where they can get better rubbish containers, that are rodent proof and leak proof and whatnot.
Right. I know this sounds like a strange question, but when I was growing up, all the trash cans were metal with
Metal.
a good strong lid. Today we have a lot of plastic things.
Yeah.
The lids tend to blow off or things like that. Is that part of the problem, or is that just
Yeah, it is.
my imagination?
No, it is. I mean, because one of the things that they say is ultimate for rodent control is the metal bin. Because, you know, a rat with the incisors that they have,
They can't gnaw through metal.
But they keep growing and growing and growing. So what they try to do is, you know, bite down on the bottom incisors and the top incisors and try to, you know, file those teeth down from growing too large. And they also gnaw on a lot of things too. So they can go right through that plastic. Metal, they wouldn't be able to do that, but plastic you would. You know, so.
And especially if you just have a plastic trash bag lying on the ground. I mean, the pictures you've been talking about at the meetings, I mean, one of them, there was a bag piled just on top of a can that had the gnaw marks.
Right, that had the gnaw. And people think because it's on top of the container, they're storing it properly. But they're not, because the state code says that now, from 1 to 2 families, it's the occupant's responsibility to provide as many receptacles, rodent-proof, leak-proof, tight-fitting lids that are necessary for their weekly pickup.
Right.
From 3 families or more, it's the property owner's responsibility. And that's what we try to get across to them as well, that, you know, I mean, it's up to you to buy these bins. And you may buy, well, I bought two per family, but 2 may not be enough. You may need 4 per family.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, our maximum per family for put out is 4. You know, so someone may be using all 4. Really, there's no reason to with our comprehensive recycling program.
Right.
But, you know, some people do.
Okay. While we've got some time left, speaking of recycling, you're going to be starting up a mattress and box spring program in the fall.
In the fall, right.
So in other words, you will no longer be able to put a mattress and box spring out on the curb?
That's the direction that we're going in, Kevin. And one of the reasons for that is we try to expand our recycling tonnage, you know, our recycling program.
Well, it's also a lot of weight.
It's
going to
it's
the
a lot of weight.
Incinerator,
right?
And you get charged by the weight.
Right. And one of the beauties of our recycling program, or any recycling program, is to reduce the amount of tonnage that's going to the incinerator as waste.
And the materials they're made of are all recyclable.
Right. And so we're doing that first with textiles. We have a textile program at the transfer station. We want to expand on that. We have one at the senior center. And we want to have a few more throughout the schools because it seems to be very popular. That one at the...
it's easy to do.
It's easy to do. That one at the transfer facility is very popular. And it's doing well. And if we can expand that more, once we do that and have the availability, then the Board of Health can enforce or institute a waste ban on textiles. We want that same thing to be toward box springs and mattresses, because we're, you know, even though...
Now, am I going to have to buy, though, a sticker to get into the transfer station?
That's one of the things that we want to settle.
Do I have to then pay to throw out the mattress and box spring, or I just drop them off there?
That's a very good question. And one of the things that we would like to do, because that grant is for 2 years. We have a 2-year grant that we got from DEP, and that would cover the overseas container where the mattresses and box springs will be stored, as well as the pickup and disposal of them, or the pickup and recycling of them, which is fantastic. And that's free of charge. But we're asked by DEP to continue the program 2 years after these 2 years have expired. And we would like to do that without burdening the taxpayers with any extra money. So what DEP recommends is that we charge a minimum fee now, just to let the public know that, you know, this is expensive to recycle when, you know, once we, whether the state's paying for it or whether, you know, the Board of Health is paying for it. And it is, you know, it can get expensive, so charge a fee now, and then once the 2 years are up, we can then continue that fee so no one has sticker shock.
But it would be a small fee, no?
It would be a small fee, and as you know, we're in the business not to make a profit, but to break even and to help the taxpayers out and to give them the best bang for their buck when it comes to recycling. Mattresses is, like you said, and box springs, they're very bulky. They take a lot of space in the truck. They take a lot of space at the incinerator. They weigh. So that's something we could, take out of the waste
I don't know if
stream.
people realize you pay by the pound
We pay by the pound,
to
right?
dispose things at the incinerator,
Right, right, and that can be
as
high.
well as trucking it there. And
Right, and now you get the trucking cost, so that's our only way that's not a fixed cost. We can control that.
Right.
And that's one of the ways that we can control it, because right now, recycling with our normal material, it seems to be at a plateau. It's not, gaining, it loses a little
well,
bit.
if you said people are reading less print material and maybe more online,
Right.
things are more plastic today than glass.
Than they are glass.
So the weight of recycling is going down.
Is going down, and we're getting the volume, but not the weight, and that's what we want to eliminate from our waste stream, or decrease from our waste stream is the weight. So by getting rid of the textiles from our waste stream, getting rid of the box springs and mattresses, I think is pretty cool. One of the things we're also looking at too for next year probably would be the bulk plastics. Like the big toys that the kids get, like the plastic pools and whatnot. So much volume that would take up in a truck, a rubbish truck.
Are those recyclable as well?
They are recyclable. And that's why we could separate them, take them out of the waste stream. So eventually we're only dealing with your typical household waste in garbage.
Right.
Eventually DEP wants most municipalities to start recycling garbage, like we did in the old days, if you remember. I don't know if New Jersey did it.
Yeah.
But we used to have, when I was a kid here in Milford, we had the garbage man.
Right.
They'd come and they'd pick up the garbage at each household that would be, separated from your regular rubbish. And
Isn't that where you had the little can buried in your backyard?
Either hanging on a pole or into the ground.
Right, and that would be sealed, and then the guy would come and pull the canister out,
pull it up,
empty
take it
put
out,
back.
and then they would steam it up and then feed it to pigs. So that's something that DEP is considering. Maybe instead of feeding it to pigs, maybe use it through composting and whatnot, because that would speed up the compost process. But so yeah, that's
Eventually, we're going back to where we were 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so this is something that we're constantly trying. We're constantly trying to raise that bar, because public health changes, environment rules change every day.
Okay.
So that's something that we're.
But okay, and let's just we'll go back to the rats, because that's what we had you here for.
Mm-hmm.
What can people do on their own property to prevent rats from coming?
Do a site assessment. Walk around the property, see what is conducive. See if they have a lot of rubbish or plants out, fruits, vegetables that are starting to rot and decay. Common sense, it's sanitation. Sanitation is pest control. Making sure that, even that one woman complained about the wood pile.
Right.
In an ideal world, that wood pile should have probably been elevated off the ground, maybe 12 to 16 inches, to more or less make it less inviting for those rats to hide and more visible for them to see. I mean, like you said, is that wood pile
also, if you're going to burn it, quite honestly, it dries out better off the ground.
Right, because of the ventilation. And, so like I said, is that wood pile causing the rats? No. But is it more or less, are they hiding in there? It could be. But once the food source is gone, they're going to go. They're not hanging around the wood pile to have a few beers and join the tenants. They're there to survive. So like I said, things like that they feel as though could be not only conducive to the rodent, but also what could invite them to stay there. Look at if they have a pile of brush or a pile of wood that's not stacked properly, get rid of it, or stack it properly off the ground. Get rodent-proof with tight-fitting lid containers. Even keep them off the ground. Look around your neighbor's property. See what they may have a brush pile or a wood pile or garbage hanging around. Or after a cookout, don't leave all the spillings and whatnot on the ground. Try to pick it up if you have the time. Your dog and cat food and bird seed is another one. Everyone likes to feed the birds, and it's great, and they're fun to watch, and and it's so soothing. But try to have a bird feeder that doesn't spread all the bird seeds all over the place, and if so, clean it up. Rats love bird seeds. As a matter of fact, there's some instances that we've seen that rats actually gained entrance to a shed for the grass seed. They were actually gnawing away the grass seed because and that's a compliment to the property owner, because he was so clean that a rat couldn't find anything but grass seed. But that's what was driving them to stay. You know, so again, it's something that, you know, people should, you know, use their common sense. It's education and awareness. Try to read up on some of these things. And, you know, again, it's not an individual problem, it's a neighborhood problem. Because if someone says, my neighbor's, you know, not keeping their property clean, they're the one that's causing the rats, could be, but it's everyone's problem right now.
Okay, and again, if people have an issue, they're feel free to call the
Call us up and
Health Department.
we'd love to help you and educate you, make you more aware of the situation and what you can do to prevent it and help.
Okay.
Again, what I would like the residents to know too, Kevin, is that, you know, by calling the Board of Health, because after a few articles, people have been calling, hey, we have rats, when are you going to come and treat? You know, we do not go on private property. We don't treat restricted, we don't apply restricted chemicals or rodenticides on people's properties.
If my memory is right, it's 508-634-2315?
Yeah, exactly, 2315, right.
Okay, so 634-2315.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming,
Well,
Paul.
thank you for having me. This was great.
We appreciate it. It's a way of enlightening people and trying to halt the problem that seems to be growing, but
That's
hopefully...
right. Hopefully we can put a stop to it.
I've done it.
Right. Thanks so
Paul.
much.
Yep,
Thanks.
bye-bye.